Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the library is built on part of the homelands of the Narco-Chank and Anacostan, Piscataway, Convoy, and Pamunkey Mahoic people, indigenous people, including these nations, live and practice their teachings on our lands today. My name is Biana Ine Ryan, and I am a librarian in the African section of the African and Middle Eastern Division here at the Library of Congress. And on behalf of my colleagues in the division and the library itself, I would like to welcome you guys to the latest installment of Conversations with African Poets and Writers, which is a series that we do here at the library. The preceding parts of the series are available on our website if you'd like to check out any of the other things that we've done in the series. This program was made possible by the generous support of the Lilly Endowment, Incorporated. Tonight's program is entitled African Sufi Poetry and will be presented by Dr. Oludamini Ogunnaike, from the University of Virginia. I'd like to give you guys a brief overview of AMED. That's an acronym for the African and Middle Eastern Division, and the African section, so what we actually do here. So what resources we have here in the hopes that you'll come back and do some research with us. So the African and Middle Eastern Division is in room 229 in this building, so right upstairs from where we are. So that's our physical location. That's where we're actually located. So AMED provides collection of unmatched depth and breadth, documenting languages and literatures, cultures and histories from around the world, extending from the southern tip of Africa to the Mediterranean coast, across the Middle East and Central Asia, and down the Indian Ocean islands. This is a custodial division which covers the collections on nearly 80 countries. For more than 60 years, the African section has served as the focal point for Africa-based research and collections at the library. Within the divisions, it's one of three sections. The Hebraic section and the Near East section are the other sections. So African, Hebraic, and Near East are the three sections. So the collections of the African section are managed by that section. And we hold rich collections in African languages, including Yoruba, Amharic, Somali, Kiswahili, Zulu, Malagasy, and many, many others. The library has a long history of preserving the stories from peoples of around the world, including Africa. So we feel a special duty to acquire a representative sample documenting the stories and histories of peoples from around the world. And like I said, I particularly focus on Africa. The library's program tonight will highlight a distinctive part of Africa's religious and cultural diversity. Now I will hand it over to my colleague, Abdullahi Ahmed, to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed, and I'm reference librarian in the African section of the African and Middle Eastern Division at the Library of Congress. It's my pleasure to welcome and introduce our speaker of the evening, Dr. Oludamini Ogunnaike, Associate Professor of African Religious Thought and Democracy at the University of Virginia. Dr. Ogunnaike is a scholar of African intellectual, religious, and artistic traditions with particular emphasis on West Africa and North African Sufism and Yoruba Orisha traditions. He received his PhD from the Department of African and African-American Studies at Harvard University and his undergraduate degree in cognitive neuroscience and African Studies from Harvard University College. He is the author of several significant publications, including, you can see these books that he published. They are in that room after the conference. You can go and check it again. Deep Knowledge, Ways of Knowing in Sufism and Ifa, Two West African Intellectual Traditions, published by Penn State University 2020, which was awarded the Association of Study of Worldwide African Diaspora Outstanding First Book Prize. Poetry Embrace of Prophetic Perfection, West African Madih, Poetry and its Precedents, Islamic Text Society 2020. The Book of Clouds, that's his latest book, 2024, a collection of English language Sufi poetry. Dr. Ogunnaike is currently completing another manuscript on Arabic Sufi poetry in a forthcoming monograph with Sunny Press entitled Curls in the Night of Meaning, the Layla Poetry of the Shadiliya. And he's also co-authoring a volume in Yoruba mythology with his brother, Ayodeji Ogunnaike, to be published by Black Dog and Leventhal. In addition to his scholarly publications, he is the host of podcast, The Logic of Birds, which examines Sufi poetry and poetics. This evening's presentation will focus on the Book of Clouds, his latest book, a poetic work that reflects the spiritual, philosophical, social themes through long-standing West African Islamic poetic traditions, particularly the Sufi Qasida and Ghazal, using lyrics expression to sing that cannot be said but must be expressed. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Oludamini Ogunnaike. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We know we have a big winter snowstorm coming. A lot of other places you could be buying eggs and bread and milk and all of that. I'd really like to thank the library, especially the African and Middle East section, Ms. Sana Mirza, Mr. Abdullahi Ahmed, and Ms. Biana Ryan. Thank you so much for putting this together this evening. So I'm here to talk to you tonight about African Sufi poetry. I'll read you some of my own poetry, but first I want to explain a little bit where this comes from, the tradition that it's a part of. So if I were to ask you who are the most popular African poets or the most popular poets in Africa? Oh dear, the clicker's not working. No, all right, let me see if I can. Yeah, thank you, sorry. If I were to ask you who's the most popular African poet? I mean, many of them have been in this series. Anyone have a guess? Who do you think the most popular poet in Africa, or African poet would be? Senghor, Wole Soyinka, maybe? Yeah, so probably you'd guess Leopold Sedar Senghor, Wole Soyinka. For contemporary, Warsan Shir, he's a very famous Somali-British poet. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, maybe you know Kenya, if you know South African poets, Dennis Brutus. If you look at North Africa, Arabic poetry, Ahmed Shouki, maybe. But in reality, if you go on the continent itself, thank you. These poets are far less popular than the Sufi poets. By far the most popular poet on the African continent is Sheikh Ibrahim Niasse, who's in the smiling figure over there on the left. Thousands of people throughout the continent have memorized his entire he has about 8 collections of poetry. Thousands of people have memorized his entire corpus of poetry. It's recited everywhere from Senegal to Sudan, to now in South Africa, up in Morocco, all over the place. If you go in North Africa, Sheikh Ahmed Al-Alawi, his poems, was the figure holding his head up there, his poems are sung, recited, memorized all over North Africa. In Sudan, figures like Sheikh Abdurrahim Abori, the man going like this, there, his poems are commonly sung at weddings, at funerals, on the radio, far, far more popular than any of the Anglophone or Francophone poets that we've discussed. And these poets, these kind of contemporary Sufi poets, come from a longer tradition of Sufi poetry on the continent, figures like Ibn Farid from Egypt, whose poetry is loved throughout the entire continent, and even more popular, Busiri, the author of perhaps what's the most popular poem in world history, the Qasida al-Borda. This poem is memorized and recited everywhere from San Francisco to Sumatra, especially for the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, but it's probably the most popular poem ever composed in world history. The first written works in the Swahili language were translations of this poem and another poem by Al-Busiri. So I'll go, if you have the good fortune to travel to Senegal, you'll hear things like this on the street. So these are two gentlemen who are trading verses of Sheikh Ibrahim Niass's Arabic poetry, Arabic Sufi poetry, praising the Prophet. They don't know each other. They didn't set this up. Someone was just singing it, and then the other person responded with this. I love Shoyinka's poetry, but I don't know anybody who does this with Shoyinka. If you could go down and hit the arrow. I don't know why it's... Thank you. This is in Nigeria. Again, these two people are almost having like a battle where they're reciting, again, verses of Sheikh Ibrahim Niass's Arabic poetry, praising the Prophet, competing with each other back and forth. And if you do really well, they throw money on you. Okay, the next one, please. Thank you so much. This is a YouTube challenge where this person is walking around to people at Sheikh Anta Diop University and asking them, thank you, to Sheikh Anta Diop University, asking them, what's your favorite verse of Sheikh Ibrahim Niass's poetry? And each of them are reciting a different verse.
وقد تم فتي عند مهدي وقد عانت جميع رجال الغيب تحت قدائي تترست ببدر المنير فإنه السناني وسمسان.
So you see, they're just rolling off their tongues. Again, this is the country of Senghor. I don't think you can do this. You can't walk to somebody at the university and say, what's your favorite verse of Senghor? It doesn't happen. Okay. Next one, please. Sorry, thank you. There are TikTok challenges with Sheikh Ibrahim Niass's poetry as well. So this is one. So sing this on TikTok. Whoever has the best one gets the most likes. This is a poem welcoming the month of Rabi al-Awwal, the month of the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. It's not just limited to Senegal. These are people in Ghana singing Sheikh Ibrahim Niass's poetry with shekere and drums, and they're kind of hanging out at the university singing his poetry for enjoyment. Again, Chinua Achebe is great, but I don't know anybody who drums along and sings his poetry. This poem is praising the Prophet Muhammad again too. It's saying that before the world was created, you were busy loving God. Loving you is my food and my drink and my fields and my and my prophet. Thank you. But Sheikh Ibrahim Niass is not the only poet who is popular like this. This is a poem by the great anti-colonial leader, Sufi Sheikh, and incredible poet Ahmed Bamba, who's really popular in Senegal and Gambia and then in the Senegalese diaspora. And he has a very unique style of recitation and his poem, which he taught to his disciples, who now taught the current generation. Again, this is poetry praising the Prophet Muhammad. This is another famous Senegalese sheikh and poet, Al-Hajj Malik Sy, or rather these are his works being recited by a community centered in Tivaouane, Senegal. And this is a TV show. If you turn on the local TV in Senegal, you often will see programs like this, where they're reciting this poetry in Arabic, usually in praise of the Prophet Muhammad, in these wonderful melodies with call and response choruses. saying, good news for us. Our hopes have been realized by the arrival of this crescent moon. The crescent moon announcing the month of the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. Thank you. Now, a lot of this poetry is in praise of the Prophet Muhammad. It's not just in West Africa. These are some young boys in Sudan singing a very, very famous poem in praise of the Prophet. And you can see the subtitles there. This is in Nigeria. Again, these men are singing the poetry of Sheikh Ibrahim Niasse. Again, mostly in praise of the Prophet Muhammad. And in some communities, they'll do this twice a week. Some communities, they do this every day. They gather and recite this poetry together. And as you can see, most of them have this memorized. Nobody's reading off of a phone or off of a book. This is at a Maulid celebration, a celebration of the Prophet's birthday in Kenya. Some of this poetry isn't just in praise of the Prophet, but will often be performed in praise of great Sufi saints or masters. So this is a video clip from Ethiopia, in which a group of women are praising the famous Iraqi sheikh, or he's actually Persian but buried in Baghdad, Abdul Qadir Jilani, founder of the Qadiriya Sufi order. Some of these poetic praise traditions of Sufi poetry merge with African griot traditions as well in West Africa. So we have these griot songs that were in praise of kings and legendary epic heroes. Now the genres of those merging and being used to praise Sufi saints and masters, especially in pop music in places like Senegal and Mali. So this is a music video by Baba Mal, who was one of the musicians who made the music for Black Panther, very famous Senegalese, and Fatou Gawel, who's a major griot singer in Senegal, all praising Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, the anti-colonial hero I mentioned earlier. So again, this is a music video. You can see this if you're at turn on the TV in Senegal or you're at a club there. Not just Sufi sheikhs are praised, but all kinds of important religious figures. So this is a poem again by Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba in praise of the Virgin Mary. It's called Fusti. You have succeeded. The translation's a bit weird, but you get the gist. Sometimes these poems are performed, as you saw, kind of for fun in a group. Sometimes they're performed on the street. Other times they're formed as a part of zikr rituals, or dhikr, as a part of Sufi ceremonies, where Sufis will gather once a week, twice a week, different times, and do these movements where they breathe rhythmically and recite this poetry. So this is in Sudan at a zikr. But these kind of ceremonies you'll find throughout the African continent. Most of these poems, whether they're praise poems or about the prophets or a figure like the Virgin Mary or a Sufi saint, they're about love. Overwhelming, uncontrollable love that burns you up from the inside, that makes you not be able to sleep at night, the kind of love that you write songs about. Like this famous poem by Ibn Farid, who I mentioned earlier. This is a famous Quran reciter from Sudan who sadly passed away. But if he wasn't reciting Quran, his favorite thing to recite was this poetry, love poetry by Ibn Farid. I love this line. Truly, passion, love is life, so die in it. It's your right to die and be observed. All right, but it wasn't all just love and roses. This poetry played a very important social role. So in the 18th century, the 19th century, West Africa has had a series of jihads. One of the earliest of them was this jihad revolt in 1776 in Futa Toro, today the area around the Senegal Valley, which was the first place to abolish the slave trade. This revolt abolished the slave trade. Jeremy Clarkson, who founded the French and the British Anti-Slavery Society, cited the founder of the leader of this movement as an inspiration for his own efforts. So in 1776, they started their revolt. It was a good year for revolutions. 1776, they started the revolution by making a pact. Everyone swore allegiance over a copy of the Quran and a collection of this poetry in praise of the Prophet. Next one. Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, when he was exiled and imprisoned by the French many times, but over his first exile for 7 years, he wrote many poems to kind of keep himself sane when he was in solitary isolation. One of the most beautiful of these poems is called Asiru, I journeyed. And the whole poem is based on this pun between Asiru, which means I journey in Arabic, and Asiru, which means prisoner. So he said, I journeyed with the righteous Asiru ma'abrari hina Asiru, when I journeyed, while my enemies thought that I was their prisoner there, Asirun. He said, but really, they thought that I was their prisoner, but they were confused. Really, they were the prisoners of Satan and greed and caprice, while I was freely joining towards the Lord of the throne, exalted be he, and I journey towards him, owner of the land and sea as a servant, and not towards the depraved is my goal as I journey. And his disciples still recite this poem today. Next slide. There's a long tradition in West African cultures, both Islamic and non-Islamic, of the power of the spoken word, particularly of elders and spiritual leaders. In Mandinka, it's called Dankaro. And there are several of these poems written in Ajami, that's in African languages, in the Arabic script, that contain these Dankaros, these kind of curses. My colleague Falun Gom at Boston College has found one of the most interesting one of these, written by a sheikh in Senegal, cursing Hitler. Because they rounded up a lot of the young men. Basically, there was a draft in his town in Senegal, and so all of his students either had to flee to escape the draft or were taken away to fight. And so he wrote this poem cursing Hitler in Mandinka. So I'll read it to you. Hitler the German has brought evil to this world. May God take away all the evil of Hitler. If Hitler is assisted by great spirits, may those great spirits be destroyed with Hitler. If he is helped by his political skills, may they be lost forever, those skills of Hitler. May God bring misfortune upon him so that he may fear himself in the bad deeds of Hitler. May God strike him with thunderbolts, destroying the skull and the flesh of Hitler. May his doctor betray him and make him drink poison until he's unconscious. May the great angel destroy his planes, catching fire in the air. From the sky let them fall, the planes of Hitler. No young man is here now. You caused our people and our guests to flee, Hitler. First Arfang Jene, Kamara, Maroon, and many others are gone, O Hitler. As for Danfa, he's very worried, for his wife is pregnant and his children can't walk, Hitler. As for Kanjeme, he wept so long until I felt sorry for him. Evil is not good, Hitler. May God destroy you in your protected house, your bunker, Hitler. May your belly swell with sickness and your genitals too, Hitler. May you feel the agony and cry and die. Amin, amin. May God fulfill our prayers. May the human race be saved from the evil of Hitler. In the name of the Prophet, and Sheikh Sadibu is a local saint whose curse is most feared. All right, so this poetry is, yes, it's about love for the Prophet, but it can also be used to send missiles like this. So the local tradition is Hitler did die in his bunker, unless you're one of the conspiracy theorists who thought he fled to Argentina. So the local tradition is it was this poetic curse that brought about his downfall. There's also a lot in this tradition. There's a lot of very touching ritha, or elegies, poems. When somebody dies, how do you respond to that? Someone close to you dies. This is by a sheikh from actually Lagos, Nigeria, where I spent my childhood, Sheikh Adam Iluri. It's a beautiful poem in Arabic, mourning the death of his young daughter. And it's really touching. He said, "Fate targeted me with its arrow and shot me, striking the noblest part of my body. It struck through my soul and heart, and the pain of poison flowed through my veins. Friends came crowding around with their antidote from here and there without cease, but the antidote was of no use to me. Nay, it increased the poison's pain. Calamity is an arrow, and sorrows are its poison, but endurance is the antidote against sorrows. The calamity was the loss of Khadija, my daughter, who was like my roh or rayhan. It's a Quranic phrase that means like delight, rest, wonder. She lived with me for 7 years in a splendor that radiated like red anemones. And then suddenly she took the earth of the grave as her pillow, her remains lying there for worms. I used to assume before this affliction that I was strong-hearted and firm in faith until I was tried with the death of my daughter, and the feeling of strength disappeared from my heart. I shed burning tears from my eyes, and my cry rose and my wailing increased. I asked my heart, is there any use for the bereaved to cry? Oh, my eyes, do not weep over the decree of fate. All of us are in the hands of the merciful. People differ in response to afflictions, but all complain of the injuries inflicted by time. I expect nothing from fate after this bitter event, save the tenderness of the merciful. Life is trouble, and death is watching, and all my deeds will be weighed. God is aware of all secrets. Nothing hidden in the world is concealed from him. O you who shows mercy to the fledgling in its nest, have mercy on my weeping, O supreme light." So this tradition is very, very touching. It writes a wide gamut from moving love poetry, praise poetry, curses, to these really tender verses. Thank you. And this is a poem, lovely Sufi poem by one of my friends and fellow poets, Amir Suleiman. Oh, I don't think you can hear it.
Bodies alone, and not
you.
spirits or souls. And when people think that their bodies alone, then they'll kill for a crown or die for a throne. The truth is that everyone will eventually leave their bodies for home. So before you return to Allah, I suggest you repent and atone. He said the other problem is that people think that their body is their own. And he said that Iblis should have bowed to our father as he was told.
Satan.
But he couldn't see Adam as a spirit, but just mud in a mold. He also thought that we were bodies alone. And the other problem is that people think that their bodies their own, but we don't own anything. Our bodies alone, because Allah created everything and everything that he owns on his own. But Allah is forever near. So although every body's alone, nobody's alone. It said, La ilaha illallah, in the known and unknown, in the seen and unseen. I felt it chill in my bones. He said it with a voice and a tone that lit up my soul. His dhikr beads were flickering like there was flint in the stones. I remember the air was fragrant with amber and rose, and I was so grateful for this moment alone. I sat beside him, and he removed a piece of lint from my thobe, and he looked at my beads and then looked at my phone. He said, Amir, do you think you use this more than those? And I couldn't answer. He said, well, look at your phone. You see it's just dead plastic or glass until you type in the code. Likewise, your beads are just wood or stone until you access the codes. So he said, so you've come to me here now to get more secret codes to gain access to the Lord of the throne. I said, yes, Sheikh. He said, Amir, would you call me right now on your phone? I said, no, because I'm sitting here with you in your home. With that, he smiled and was quiet. I left that one alone. He said, Amir, if you think the people will benefit, put this advice in one of your poems. I said, yes, Sheikh, and what should I focus on when I compose? He said that the secret of the secret is really a secret that everyone knows. And that everybody will leave their bodies for home. And although everybody's alone, nobody's alone. And Allah is with us here now, but Allah is alone.
Thanks. So this tradition is now migrated into English. There's people doing the same kind of profound Sufi poetry in not only African languages, Yoruba, Hausa, Swahili, Arabic, but now English as well too. So before I get into some of my own poetry, inferior to Brother Amir's, I want to give you a bit more technical background on how this poetry works. Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, I've mentioned a bunch of times before, says, anyone who approaches the poetry of the saints of the Sufis just by grammar and prosody alone will suffer grave mistakes. Goethe, for his part, said, who wants to understand the poet must go to the poet's land. So we've had a little tour now, but now I'm going to take us into the land. Okay, so the main problem facing Sufi poetry is, how do you F the ineffable? Right. How do you talk about God who's beyond language, beyond concepts? How do you deal with a love that doesn't allow you to be silent? It's boiling up inside of you. You have to say something, but nothing you say is adequate to it's really what's beyond experience. You're caught between speech and silence, between the limitations of language and the ineffability of what's beyond all concepts. The answer for many, many Sufis throughout time, history, and place is poetry. Poetry is a kind of barzakh, which that means a liminal reality that both unites and divides. So the threshold is a barzakh between inside and outside. Sunset is a barzakh between night and day. It's a liminal reality that both unites and divides. Here's the next slide. Poetry itself is a barzakh between silence and speech. You're caught between I can't say anything and I have to say something. Right? Poetry, the form of poetry, it's a barzakh between music and prose, between feeling and thought, or in Arabic you'd say between hal and qal, or between adwaq, tastings, experiences, and awraq, papers, discursive things. Even the very form of poetry, the structure is a barzakh. In all of these traditions, the poetry is strictly metered. Meter, rhythm is a barzakh between eternity or stillness and motion. Rhyme, all of this across all of these languages, classical Islamic poetry, whether it's in Swahili, Hausa, Wolof, is rhymed. Rhyme itself is a barzakh between one sound and many sounds. Get it repeated, same sound, but with variation. And the nature of the poetic speech, poetic diction, is that it's metaphorical. One thing is connected to another. One thing stands in for another. And metaphor itself is a bridge. It's a barzakh between signified and signifier. In Sufi cosmology, this is particularly apt for people, because people, especially the Prophet, are a barzakh between being and nothingness. And poetry is an art of the breath. The very substance of poetry is breath. And in this tradition, breath is understood as a barzakh between the spirit and the body. That's why there's so many exercises with the breath. Another important aspect of the way in which Sufi poetry works is what I call seeing or singing in three dimensions. There's the metacosm, the macrocosm, and the microcosm. All right, so the idea is that everything that's out there in the world, in the cosmos, is a reflection, the Quran says it's ayat, signs, symbols of God. Everything, Quran says, will show them our signs on the horizons and in themselves until they know that it is the truth. So everything that's out there is a sign, something reflecting God. It's like a disco ball reflecting the face of the divine beloved. But it's also true within us as well. Everything out there is also within us here. So the ayat out there, the signs of God out there, are also in here. And ayat symbols also names the verses of Quran. And the key to understanding, decoding the connections between the signs out there, the signs in here, and the aspects of God that they represent, reflect, symbolize, is in the Quran. It connects all of these. So anything that's out there also reflects something in here, also reflects something of God. And this is the way the poetry works. Drunkenness, so a lot of these Sufi poets, they write about wine all the time. Most of them have never tasted a drop. Some of them had, but most of them had never tasted a drop. But they write all the time about drunkenness. Why? The sign of drunkenness outside there, the ayat there, represents something about the inner intoxication of love, of the states that you get into when you do a lot of dhikr of Allah, when you do a lot of meditation and remembrance. And both of those things are reflections of higher paradisal realities. The Quran describes rivers of wine in paradise. Right? Same thing with human love out here. Human love here and romantic love, erotic love is a reflection of things in here, which is a reflection of divine love up there. It's all connected. And this is the way this poetry works. The poetry works by drawing connections between things out there, things in here, and things up there, often with reference to the Quran. So because of this, kind of any good poem can be a Sufi poem. If you write a really good poem about love, then whether you recognize it or not, because everything that's out there are just signs reflecting the divine reality, you're talking about God. So there are lots of great Arabic poems, the authors were not Sufis at all, that have been incorporated into the Sufi canon. So this poem here is a wonderful poem. وليتك تحلو فالحياة مريضة وليتك ترضى فالأنام غضاب وليت الذي بيني وبينك العمر وبيني وبين العالمين خراب إذا صح منك ود فكل حين وكل الذي فوق تراب تراب. So it's, as long as you're sweet, let life be bitter. As long as you're pleased, let all men be mad at me. As long as there's something between me and you, let all between me and the world be in ruins. If truly you love me, then all things are easy, and let all that's over the dust be just dust. It's beautiful, right? This was written by an Arab prince, Abu Farasa Hamadani, who was imprisoned. He was a prisoner of war, and he was writing to his cousin, asking him to bail him out of jail, to ransom him, right? But it gets quoted all the time as love poetry. People, you like a girl, you write this poem down, send it to her, right? And Sufis adopted it, so much so that one of my teachers actually thought this was written by an early Iraqi Sufi. I said, no, it's actually by a prince. But it doesn't matter, because it's talking about the same reality of love. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is kind of summed up in a famous poem. Our expressions are many, while your beauty is one, and everything to that beauty, loveliness points or alludes. So all of these different expressions and the kind of Sufi way of reading things is all pointing to divine beauty. Now the term poetry in Arabic and a lot of other Islamic languages is shi'r, which comes from the root shu'ur, which means a kind of intuitive perception. Shu'ur is a kind of perception. And so when you're writing shi'r, what you're doing is you're intuiting what's going on in the world, the things beyond the appearances. This root of the Arabic, also named sha'r, hair. And some commentators explain this, saying that what poets do is they trace out the subtle connections, the raqa'iq, between all the things in the universe and beyond the universe. So the genres of Sufi, there are a lot of different kinds of Sufi poetry, but they tend to focus on these three themes: love poetry, wine poetry, and praise poetry, often all mixed together. As we'll see, these are the kind of favorite symbols for describing the journey, the spiritual journey to God, the path to God, the relationship, love, all of these things. Okay, so this is one of my own poems. Sufi poetry is often, in fact, it's often quoted even in theological texts. You get to a certain point, you can only talk about God rationally so far. After that, you got to go to poetry. There's a certain point at which logic and language, ordinary language, fail. Even for simple things, like I tell my students, if you've never had a durian fruit, or if your friend has never had a durian and you've had it, you're trying to explain to them, what's a durian taste like? You have to say, oh, it smells kind of like a permanent marker, but it's kind of perry apple. You have to start speaking poetically. There's a certain place at which our standard ways of using language fail. And for the Sufis, this is precisely where the encounter with the divine, the encounter with what's beyond our rational faculties. So this poem of mine says, theology is pornography, philosophy is fan fiction. I don't want to talk. I want your lips, not their description. I don't think that needs much commentary. Okay, so this is why famous Indian Sufi poet Amir Khusro said, science, ordinary knowledge, is like water in a cask. You draw 10 sound conclusions and its volume decreases. But poetry is an ever-flowing spring. Even if you delve into it 100 times, it cannot diminish. If you have a really good poem, you come back to it again and again and again, and you don't get tired of it. It gives you something new each time. It's not like a painting, it's more like a window or a mirror. As you change, as the world changes, it changes. It shows you new things. The Korean-German philosopher Byung-Chul Han said, a 1,000-page book which has to explain what the world is about perhaps cannot express as much as a single haiku can. I think he's right. As Rumi wrote in his Divani Shams, since your love was kindled in my heart, apart from your love, all that I have has burned. My heart put reason and study and books on the shelf and was taught poetry and ghazals and quatrains. Ibn Arabi, for his part, a famous Andalusian Sufi, said poetry is the substance and prose is the accident. He said, kind of mythologically speaking, when people first started speaking, they all spoke poetry. Only as we devolved, we started speaking prose. He described composing poetry with its meters and its rhymes as weaving a net. And he said it's a net because you use a net to catch live things, things of the spirit. You catch the live state in which you're in, and then when you recite it, when other people read it, it releases that state inside of them. In Arabic, this is called lisan al-hal. For my students, I like to say it's like if you listen to an Adele album, you catch some of her feelings by contagion. She just went through a breakup or something, you listen to it, you start feeling what she was feeling. This is the power of poetry. Michael Sells writes of, in really all of these traditions on the African continent and beyond, the kind of ideal state that this poetry, recitation, performance of this poetry is supposed to create is something called tarab. Tarab there's not really a good English translation, but this account of it by Michael Sells is the best thing I've ever read about it. He says, there's a moment during the recitation of a poem when the eyes of the reciter and the audience moisten from a combination of aesthetic pleasure and remembrance of loss, when body, mind, and breathing begin to form a new, slower rhythm. Tarab refers to a deep sense of aesthetic appreciation, a kind of love intoxication, a sense of being overcome with waves of remembrance of what is at the core of our being and lies too deep for other modes of thought to reach. But this is what Sufi poetry is supposed to help us access and help us reach. And I can't promise that we're going to get to Tarab tonight, but we can try. Thanks. Okay, so I'd like to read you now some of my own poems. After all that build-up, I don't see how to possibly live up, but... the next one? Yeah, it's on here. Okay, so this is a poem written in the form of a ghazal in praise of the Prophet Muhammad. Bismillah. You are love's ocean's waterfall. All beauty's charms descend in you. Though it seems too good to be true, all of my longings end in you. The music from beyond the skies, the sweetness growing in the earth, wind sighs and wisdom I find in the love notes that he sends in you. The sunlight falling on the ground that starts dust and drops desperate dance is but a shadow of your glance. Every last joy ascends in you. My heart felt like it swallowed stones, a singing bird lost in salt dunes. With broken wings, without a home, my tears and tears all mend in you. Once all alone and seeking proofs, inside of dreams as firm as clouds, you woke me up, tore off the roof. It seems all veils do rend in you. All I have read, all my ink's lines, all signs between the two vast blues, though I have tried and searched, they can't compare to what he's penned in you. My thorny heart burst into bloom, drunk at the mere mention of you. Beyond imagination's reach, the mercy he extends in you. Not even bound by boundlessness, each shackle and limitation, each heaven and its reflection, I find my soul transcends in you. The wonders of the wide, wide world and the next to, all pale next to, the humble might and silent light of what I apprehend in you. A dewdrop that holds all the worlds, the deep inkwell of your pupil, without color contains all words, colors, delights, all blend in you. Like light inside your pearly eyes, sunbeams in ocean's prisms do, all of my chains, all prison bars, all of my thoughts do bend in you. Your beauty has blinded the sun, and like the chattering parrots do, Eden grew green in envy of the garden that he tends in you. Like Arabic lips gymnastics, like his name and my last breath too, and like the end of every clue, all my beginnings end in you. The wind beneath the mighty wings of Suleiman's throne and kingdom, how wondrous that all that he brings is in your hand, depends on you. He's everything and I'm nothing. How far apart are false and true. How is it that we both seem to have found a mirror and friend in you? Thanks. Next one. And I think for time we'll skip and one more. Okay, this is another poem. We are tears, but no ocean can hold us. Just dust, but more weighty than boulders. What broke the sky and the earth's shoulders is what makes our hearts burn and eyes smolder. Fresh as buds, but in time we are older. Soft snowflakes, but we're harder than soldiers. We do drops grab the sun's hair and hold her until she returns what we owe her. Though this life's hard as winter and colder, to the nightingales we are all roses. Though this night's long, they've shackled and sold us. When dawn's breeze blows, we're those who arose first. Suleiman knows these spells and all those versed, so your poetry's cursed and your prose worse. Most men who break this silence are posers. What we've tasted has sown closed our mouth's mirth. Those who know can read well our woe smirk. We are tears, but no ocean can hold us. This one's actually inspired by a gospel song that I heard that I love so much. I had to steal one of its lines. My room, it has 2 windows, but the sunlight won't shine through. I found a leak in this roof that my soul's got to rise through. My heavy sins are many, and my saving virtues few. The world has many colors, but all I see is blue. Your mouth is full of answers, but all I want's the truth. I've tasted plenty raptures, but all I want is you. This is in the form of a khamriya, a Sufi wine poem. This life's too hard to live sober, so drink and try to die a drunk. For heaven's but a hangover for those who drink from your mouth's cup. And when I miss your lips, I mix love's memories with words in verse to warm my soul with little sips and cool the sharp pain of my thirst. So pour love's lightning in my heart and grind my bones to gleaming sparks, all dancing like stars on the tides. My life shores end where your love starts. If you spent your life for a drop, that's cheap. It won't have been in waste. And all your life has been for naught if you die now without a taste. So all I have's a burning heart, fed by tears flowing like the rain. Lips scalded by love's tongues of flame can never taste death's bitter pain. Okay, and this is another Ghazal form. Before my life was raised by love, my hopes and I were raised by love. Then dark eyes flashed a searing glance, sights blinded, my mind dazed by love. From my spirit down to my toes, my all was set ablaze by love. And everywhere I turn, I see birds, atoms, bees, trees, crazed by love. All sunset clouds are smoke burned from my heart, roasted and braised by love. I wonder at those walking dead, stumbling through life, unfazed by love. Those wise scholars, addicts, rich men, all fiends, because they were grazed by love. But your smile blew out my brains, my soul shocked and amazed by love. When our eyes met, the lightning flashed, bones thundered, my flesh tased by love. All beauty, grace, delight, and light lie in your face, you're praised by love. Suleiman wrote verse upon your breaths, my heart and parts rephrased by love. Thank you. This one was written after the death of my father, my great aunt, and my uncle, so it was a really tough time. And I wrote in the Ghazal form. Today I've lost another friend, though death is not the end. Tonight, millions more souls ascend, though death is not the end. This life's a crumbling cliff's edge, weeping earth endlessly. The clouds cry, I lose you again, though death is not the end. What have you found here to hold on to when all seems condemned? Where we all lose all is loss, though death is not the end. Last night I heard a gazelle cry against extinction's blaze. It poured out groans like sea waves foam, though death is not the end. See how high have the towers grown, like gleaming glass gravestones. They've buried all that can't be owned, though death is not the end. Some days I wish death would bring an end to its suffering, but even for itself I know, no, death is not the end. I've been missing you so long, longing itself grew tired of us. From light to ash, rivers to snow, no, death is not the end. Can you go? Next one. Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Can you go back? On our journey. Okay. And like a flock of butterflies migrating the seasons, we wander in and out of time, so death is not the end. Falling through our hands like rain, time's precious pearls, too rare to spend on anything but making love, though death is not the end. Though death is not the end, when will our separation cease? I'm getting sick of being told that death is not the end. Only your mouth can stop my cries and seal this sad lament. These words echo twixt ribs and stars, for death is not their end. That mighty seal of Suleiman, commanding all the jinns, the imprint of your angel kiss, for which death is no end. Wake up, my love, and give me life, with kisses without end. Lie down and sleep with me again, so death won't be the end. Thanks. Okay. And then the last poem I'll read before our discussion is in the form of a qasida, which is a longer poem, and it's an elegy for Sudan, the kind of forgotten crisis of our world today. Silent lightning flashed, thunderless rain dried, last sighs rise like gas, light fades from the eyes, earth can't hold more blood, hearts can't bear more lies, sin stained seen from space, swallowed all tears cried, hunger's thunder roars, famished famine died, death swarms silently, alighting like flies, lands with hearts of gold, stabbed in hearts to let golden wealth flow out like lava's sunset. Trade deals and bad bets, meals made to upset, make our continent so incontinent. To fill the holes where our soul once had dwelt, they sell us for parts, consigned to twin hells. One drowned in sin's well, they call paradise, one buried alive, slaving in graves' mines. Come wrap yourself in this poem's blanket, tied to a pigeon, escaping all nets, flying above borders, fences, battle lines, beyond the jinn's winds that possess their minds. Rivers flowing verse, Niles and Congos, Niger's tears burn black as they reach their home. They sing of the years, soul stolen away, inky oiled tears stretched like tar and frayed. Our towers are made from their shallow graves, earth steel glass piled high, pits make peaks of waves. We take all their jewels and give them our trash, choking on plunder, hands washed in their ash. What magic is this that silences screams, ears deaf and hearts blind to dumb tragedy? Thobes have become shrouds, pyres replaced dukhan, feast laid silver trays, nowadays scraped from cans. The teeth in the sand outshine starry skies, night seen such evil, sun's face fears to rise. Blue the fog of war, white the bones of men, red run the rivers stained by dead children, gray the land and skies that all once bloomed green, black our days and lives, silver moon unseen. Yellow is the press, orange dying sun, purple are the lips, last breaths rise up from. Camels terrified and scatter and flee, crocodiles weep, vultures circling. Hell wept in pity, angels quake with rage at calamities unique to this age. They say time heals all, but this time destroyed all, even itself, shadows in the void. Mothers and children, families ripped apart, like bodies and souls split by death's dark art. Why is the refuge of your dear prophets refused all refuge, save you and you're blessed? And if these mountains should all melt to ash, scattered in the breeze, would their love songs last? How many times can hearts be split broken until like atoms they unleash oceans? Perhaps where all might and power has failed, gentle mercy's reign will finally prevail. When elephants fight, the grasses suffer, but be starved without this grass's succor. Oh God, please come down, the night is so dark, dawn is forgotten, but for this small spark. Ask the swift gazelles at the windswept dunes, ask the turning stars, ask the waning moon, whose eyes have known sleep, whose hearts have dreamed tombs. When will prayers, whirlwinds, stem war's bloody bloom? God, pour out your rain on Darfur, Khartoum, consume the fires in pieces perfume. As long as lightning heralds thunder's boom, as long as bright noon follows the dusk gloom, as long as our hearts carry your sweet tune, and it carries us through these days of doom. As long as though I search the skies for you, faces turn born for and return to you. Thank you.
Is this thing, okay, great. Wow. Lots to think about, lots to talk about. The first thing when reading the Book of Clouds, when opening it, you say this. I had to make a note. You say, this diwan or collection of poems began with a pilgrimage to Jalal al-Din Muhammad Rami and Kenya in 1430, oh wait, what is that? 1430/2009. Upon returning, the poems began to flow. So talk to me about how you put together this collection of poems.
Yeah, so as it said, I'd always liked poetry. I tried writing some poems, like in high school, a little bit in college. But my first year of grad school, I went to Turkey for a conference, and they made a pilgrimage to Rumi's tomb in Konya. And when I got back, poems started coming, but in a kind of different style than I'd written before. They kind of started coming in this kind of more metered, rhymed kind of style, and it just kept going since then. And I would share them with friends and family, and after a while, I was like, okay, I think these are getting pretty good. And so I asked one of my friends who's a kind of older academic, I said, do you think I should publish these? He said, wait till you get tenure. So,
Okay.
so wait till you get tenure. So I got tenure, and then the next book, right after I got tenure, I was like, all right, I put it together. I tried to pick the ones that I thought were the best ones, and I organized them kind of by theme. So a lot of the classical diwans, collections of poetry that you get, either Arabic, Persian, Hausa, Swahili, they're either organized alphabetically or by theme. So I have some poems at the beginning that are like praising the Prophet and other Sufi saints and things like that. And then some poems about kind of meta-poetic poems, and poems about wine, and then ghazals, and then qasidas, which are mostly kind of mourning death or kind of political, the kind of more social. The qasida kind of lends itself more to that form. The ghazal form is like really just about love. And so yes, that's how I put it together. I tried to pick the best ones. I shared a lot with my wife, like which ones do you think hit or not, which ones are good, and she let me know.
Good advice, right?
Yeah.
I could ask all the questions, but I want to open the floor up to the audience to ask questions. My colleagues, Abdullahi and Karush, are walking around with mics. If anybody has any burning questions they'd like to ask. Okay, I'll keep going. Don't worry. There's a question. Sorry.
How vulnerable do you allow yourself to be as you allow yourself to be
Yeah, that's one of the, how vulnerable do you allow yourself to be when you commit these. I feel like my best work comes when I'm at my most open and vulnerable. One of the things I really like about these poetic forms, the Qasida, the Ghazal, is it gives you a space to be really vulnerable with yourself, and then when you're performing with other people as well too. And it's a kind of space that's often denied men, especially black men in this culture, but even other places too, like in Pakistan, for example, they have Qawwali music, and you see these like big, burly, tough guys crying and singing about, I love you so much, I want to die, and stuff like, it's, so that I think is one of the gifts of this poetry, is that it can allow you to be vulnerable with yourself. It can allow you to open up and be vulnerable and open with other people, and then invite them also to be vulnerable with you in so doing. Because one of Amir Suleiman, you saw him recite the poem there in English, he once said that performing poetry is like performing open heart surgery on yourself in front of people. I would say that performing like good poetry is like that. I mean, you can all lyrical miracle, whatever. You can throw together rhymes, and that's something different from poetry. Poetry is reaching deep inside yourself, pulling out what's there, and trying to present it to people. So I try as much as I can. I think I still got a ways to go as a poet, but that's the goal.
Hello, my name is Maria Fernanda. I'm from DC, so glad to be here with you. I had a question about, fellow poet, I had a question about collaborations, and maybe, because I've been listening to your beautiful citations, and I'm curious if there's contemporary artists that you, whether they're poets or not poets, that you've collaborated with that have just been so like heartwarming for you, or collaborations that you would like to do that you haven't done yet.
Thank you, that's a great question. So I have there's a WhatsApp group of those of us who write Sufi poetry in English, and so usually we share drafts with each other and collaborate and make suggestions, and so that's been great. Two of my really good friends, who are actually three of them, who are also poets, Amir Suleiman, who you saw here. I would love to collaborate with him more officially later, but we just send stuff to each other on WhatsApp. Now he's too busy doing stuff with Dave Chappelle and Robert Glasper. He's big time. And Baraka Blue is another one. He's another semi-famous poet. We do some collaboration sometime. And then one of my friends, I don't know if he's here, Dean, he's a doctor down in Hopkins, but he writes great poetry. And we sometimes I'll write something and he'll sing it. He's got a great voice. And then sometimes he'll write something, he writes in Arabic and English, and we'll kind of work on it together. So yeah, the poetry, open heart surgery on yourself, but it's often in community. The poems I chose to write tonight, I sent out to my friend and grad student here, Alina, to my wife, and had them say, which ones do you think I should read tonight? What do you think would be best for this setting? A lot of poems, like a lot of, interestingly, African Sufi poetry, they take the standard meters and things of Arabic, and then they adapt them to their local languages, and they often write things to local music and tunes. So they'll create new meters out of melodies for new things. And so I do that too. I'll be inspired by a melody. Like I wrote a ghazal to the melody of 50 Cent's PIMP. Like it's a really good beat melody for poetry. So it works as a song. So yeah, that kind of collaboration is there. For me, the main inspiration are other poets and music. I have other friends who really get inspired by nature, by movies, by other things like that. But for me, it's mainly other poetry, and music is really what kind of guides. Thanks. Great question.
Thanks for sharing your knowledge and your vulnerability today. Out of curiosity, I saw a few, I believe it was your poems mentioning Suleiman. I'm kind of curious what the affinity is there.
Yeah, so that's in the classical tradition. If you write a ghazal, one of the things you have to do in the ghazal is sign off either the last verse or the second to last verse. You have a takhalus. So, for example, some people have maybe heard of the poet Hafez. Hafez isn't his name. Hafez is his pen name. It's his takhalas. His name was, Khwaja Shamsuddin Muhammad al-Shirazi. But his pen name was Hafez. Rumi's pen name, interestingly, was half the time khamush, silence. So he'd end his poems, silence, shut up. And the other half the time, Shamsuddin Tabriz, his mentor, his best friend, is Saadi, another famous poet. That was his pen name. So Suleiman is my takhalas, is my pen name. Also is my Arabic name, but yeah, that's, yeah. Good catch, yeah.
So we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to Oludamini.